Today we're going to talk about a moment we all know, that super quick glance at your phone at a red light. It feels harmless, right? I mean, what's the big deal? A few seconds to check a message, refresh a feed. But what if I told you that tiny little action has a massive, measurable, and kind of surprisingly costly ripple effect? Okay, let's get into it.
You know the feeling. We've all been there. You're second, third, maybe even fifth in line at a stoplight. It turns green and nothing. Crickets. You wait, maybe you do a little polite tap of the horn. You start wondering, hello, what is possibly going on up there? Well, today we're going to answer that question, and we're going to use data, a little bit of psychology, and a look at the very real price you could end up paying.
This right here, this scene, this is our starting point. You can think of it as a laboratory where a really fascinating and, let's be honest, frustrating modern behavior plays out hundreds, thousands of times a day. And what happens in these few seconds at the intersection? Well, it tells a much, much bigger story.
Right, so that little delay, it's not just an annoyance. It is a quantifiable phenomenon, and it has a real impact on traffic flow. Researchers have actually gone out and studied this, and what they found reveals the true cost of that supposedly harmless glance.
So here's the baseline. Field research done at busy intersections found that on average, about 15% of drivers are distracted while they're sitting there waiting for the light to change. To put that another way, that's about 1 in every 7 cars. So what's grabbing their attention? Now, what's really interesting here is the breakdown. I mean, sure, people are distracted by all sorts of things, passengers, food, you name it. But the overwhelming culprit, the big slice of this pie, it's the cell phone. Over 60% of those distracted drivers were looking down at a screen. And that specific distraction creates a very specific kind of delay.
And it even has a technical name, startup lost time. This is basically the extra time it takes for the first few cars in a line to react when the light turns green and actually get moving. It's that gap between the light changing and traffic getting up to a normal speed. And you guessed it, distractions just pour fuel on this fire.
And here you can see the direct impact, clear as day. At one intersection they studied, the average delay for a line of cars with no distractions was just over 3 seconds. But when just one driver in that line was distracted, the delay jumped to nearly 3.7 seconds. That's more than half a second of lost time, precious green light time gone, for everyone. But the cost doesn't stop with that one driver, oh no. This is the crucial point right here. The delay doesn't just affect the person looking at their phone, it cascades backward. It creates this shockwave of lost time that smacks into the drivers behind them, who could be doing absolutely nothing wrong. Okay, let's look at the hard data and see how this thing builds. Check out this first row. When the very first driver in line is distracted, the car directly behind them gets delayed by almost half a second. And the car behind them, delayed by nearly half a second too. The delay actually propagates down the line. It's a traffic jam created out of thin air, all because of one little glance at a screen. So the real question is, why on earth can't we stop doing it? Well, the answer isn't about traffic science anymore. It's about brain science. The reason that phone is so incredibly hard to put down, even for the 45 seconds you're at a red light, is because it's been deliberately engineered to trap your brain in a really powerful psychological loop. It's called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. It's a concept from the famous psychologist B.F. Skinner. He found that if you give out a reward at random, totally unpredictable intervals, the behavior to get that reward becomes almost impossible to stop. The randomness, that's the secret sauce. And where was this principle perfected? Casinos. Think about a slot machine. It doesn't pay out every single time, right? It pays out randomly. It's the maybe, the what if, that keeps you pulling that lever. Your smartphone uses the exact same mechanism. Swiping to refresh your feed, that's pulling the lever. The notification, the like, the comment, the email, that's the unpredictable payout. You're not checking because you know something is there. You're checking because something might be there. This is the absolute key to understanding all of this. Your brain releases the feel-good chemical dopamine in anticipation of a reward, not when you actually get it. It's the wanting, not the having. That little maybe is the hit that creates the compulsive urge to check again and again and again. And how often are we chasing that maybe? Well, studies show the average person checks their phone 96 times a day. Let that sink in. That's once every 10 minutes that they're awake. That loop is running constantly in the background, training our brains for the next check. And this conditioning, it runs so deep it can actually make our brains hallucinate. You ever felt your phone vibrate in your pocket, only to pull it out and see absolutely nothing? That is a real, documented phenomenon called phantom vibration syndrome.
And we're not talking about some rare disorder here. Nearly 90% of people say they've experienced it. Just think about that for a second. Our brains have become so conditioned to anticipate a signal from our phones that they literally start manufacturing the signal out of thin air. That's not just a bad habit. That is deep neurological conditioning.
So we have a scientifically proven delay on the road, and it's caused by a psychologically engineered addiction. But you know what? The consequences don't even stop there. Society's catching on, and the penalties for getting caught are getting pretty serious.
Let's just take a look at Australia, where touching your phone while driving, and yeah, that includes while you're stopped in traffic, is illegal. The fines are staggering. In Queensland, it's over $1,200 and 4 demerit points. Even in the least expensive state, it's still hundreds of dollars. The message is crystal clear. The authorities see this as a major public safety issue.
And the laws are incredibly strict about what you can do. Essentially, unless the phone is in a fixed cradle and you're using it hands-free for something like navigation or taking a call, you cannot touch it, period. Resting it on your lap? Illegal. Holding it between your shoulder and your ear? Illegal. That quick glance at the red light could cost you, and cost you dearly.
So let's bring this all together. If you've struggled with this, if you feel that pull to check your phone when you know you probably shouldn't, it is so important to understand this isn't just some personal failure. You are a human being with a human brain, and you're going up against one of the most sophisticated attention capture systems ever built. You are fighting an evolutionary drive that has been deliberately aimed at a glowing screen. Look, you didn't design the slot machine, but understanding how the trap works, that's the first step to disarming it. Knowing that it's the maybe that's hooking you, knowing the real-world delays it causes, and knowing the steep price you could pay, that knowledge gives you a choice. So the next time you're sitting at that red light and your hand starts to move, you can ask yourself, am I making a choice right now, or is the algorithm?